History often celebrates the loudest empires, the conquerors, the superpowers, the civilizations that left behind monumental architecture and detailed written records. We hear again and again about Rome, Persia, China, and the great Islamic caliphates. But what about the kingdoms that once thrived, shaped trade routes, influenced cultures, and then faded quietly into obscurity? These were not minor societies. Many commanded vast territories, pioneered technologies, and influenced global exchange networks. Yet, for various reasons, political collapse, environmental shifts, conquest, or simple neglect, their stories were minimized or forgotten. Today, we will explore some of these lost kingdoms, not as footnotes, but as central actors in world history. Their absence from popular narratives does not diminish their importance. In fact, rediscovering them reshapes how we understand the past. In the Horn of Africa, in what is now modern-day Eritrea and northern Ethiopia, rose the powerful kingdom of Aksum. Flourishing between the 1st and 7th centuries CE, Aksum controlled trade between the Roman Empire, India, and Arabia. It minted its own coins, a clear symbol of economic sophistication and sovereignty. Towering stone obelisks still stand as evidence of its architectural skill. Aksum was also one of the earliest states to adopt Christianity as a state religion, centuries before much of Europe. Yet despite its achievements, Aksum rarely appears prominently in global history textbooks. Environmental degradation, shifting trade routes, and external pressures contributed to its decline. But its cultural legacy continued through the Ethiopian highlands, influencing regional identity for centuries. Aksum reminds us that Africa was not isolated. It was deeply connected to global networks. Far from Africa, across the seas of Southeast Asia, the maritime empire of Srivijaya dominated trade from the 7th to the 13th century. Based in Sumatra, this kingdom controlled the Strait of Malacca, one of the most critical trade choke points in the world. By regulating this narrow passage, Srivijaya became immensely wealthy. It was not only a commercial hub, but also a center of Buddhist scholarship, attracting monks from across Asia. Chinese records describe its influence and diplomatic missions. Yet because much of its architecture was built from wood and local materials rather than stone, physical evidence is limited. When regional powers rose and trade dynamics shifted, Srivijaya gradually faded. Without massive stone ruins to capture global imagination, its story remained overshadowed, despite its critical role in connecting China, India, and the Islamic world. South of ancient Egypt flourished the powerful kingdom of Kush. Often overshadowed by its northern neighbor, Kush was not merely influenced by Egypt. At times, it conquered and ruled it. The Kushite kings of the 25th dynasty became pharaohs of Egypt. They built pyramids at Meroe, developed iron industries, and controlled trade routes deep into Africa. Yet in many historical narratives, Kush appears only as a side note in Egyptian history. When political centers shifted and trade routes evolved, Kush declined, but its impact on African state formation remained profound. The pyramids of Sudan stand today as silent witnesses to a powerful civilization that history often reduces to a footnote. Southern Africa, between the 11th and 15th centuries, the kingdom centered around Great Zimbabwe rose as a major power. Massive stone walls constructed without mortar form one of Africa's most impressive archaeological sites. This kingdom thrived on trade in gold and ivory, linking inland Africa to Swahili coastal cities and global markets. For centuries, colonial narratives refused to believe that local African populations could have built such monumental architecture. Only later did archaeological research firmly establish indigenous authorship. The kingdom eventually declined due to economic and environmental pressures, but its existence challenges outdated assumptions about African statehood and sophistication. Great Zimbabwe stands as a reminder that historical erasure can be intentional. When people think of the Khmer Empire, they often think only of Angkor Wat. Yet the broader empire that built it was one of Southeast Asia's most sophisticated civilizations. Centered in present-day Cambodia, the Khmer engineered advanced hydraulic systems, massive reservoirs and canals that supported large urban populations. At its peak, the empire controlled much of mainland Southeast Asia. Climate shifts, internal conflict, and external invasions weakened its power, leading to gradual decline. Over time, jungle growth covered its cities, and its history became partially obscured. But recent archaeological discoveries reveal that Angkor was part of a vast urban network. The Khmer story reminds us that environmental management can determine the survival of even the greatest empires. The deserts of Arabia rose the kingdom of the Nabataeans, whose capital was the magnificent city of Petra. Masters of water engineering, they turned arid landscapes into thriving trade centers. Petra became a crossroads for caravans carrying incense, spices, and luxury goods. Their wealth came not from conquest, but from controlling trade networks. Eventually, Roman expansion absorbed their territory, and their political independence ended. Yet their architectural achievements carved into rose-red cliffs still inspire awe. The Nabataeans demonstrate how trade, innovation, and strategic geography can create powerful kingdoms without vast armies. These lost kingdoms, Aksum, Srivijaya, Kush, Great Zimbabwe, the Khmer Empire, and the Nabataeans, challenge the simplified story of world history. They reveal a world far more interconnected than we often imagine. Trade routes linked continents. Religious ideas crossed oceans. Technology spread across deserts and jungles. History did not unfold only in Europe or a handful of famous capitals. It was shaped by diverse peoples across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. When we recover these forgotten kingdoms, we do more than correct textbooks. We restore balance to the human story. The past becomes richer, more inclusive, and more complex. And perhaps most importantly, we learn that power and innovation have never belonged to one region alone.